we've just torqued down the crankshaft, and that took a lot of checking up to check what the correct torques were. So it turns out with the ARP big end bolts that it's basically 25 foot-pounds, which is about 35 Newton meters, with their special grease. There's no stretching involved as there was with the original Ford ones, and they are able to be reused, so that was good. Confirmed by Burton supplied these things, and we've just done the big ends to 90 Newton meters each, which seems to be what everyone says it should be, and it seems to be the right sort of figure. So there we are, the crankshaft is fully refitted. We've also got a new rear main seal on, and we're just about to put the sump on prior to turning it upside down, then we can get the head on. So let's do that. So this is a shallow sump from Raceline. It has the Ford style rubber gasket which fits in a very neat slot all the way around. It's shallow to provide extra ground clearance, which is what you need on the Dutton. And that was bought a few years ago. Yes, it was quite expensive. But anyway, we'll turn it upside down and put it on the block like this. So we just need to find some bolts to tighten up and to fix it down with. We'll jiggle it into position, get a couple in, and then tighten the rest of the way. It seems pretty sensible.
So these need to be torqued down.
It's just, I don't think it's that crucial. Just FT.
Finger tight.
Yeah.
Probably not finger tight actually. Probably a bit tighter than finger tight.
Well, they're not tighter than finger tight. Unfortunately, we can't use the electric spanner on this. This is 10. Pretty certain that's a 10.
Alright,
yep.
Turn it over now.
I was going to check the sump plug while we're here. Actually, there's a big adjustable silver side. Top drawer, probably an inch or something. Yeah. Okay. Right, we'll turn it over then. Which is liable to be easier said than done. Maybe go over that way. It's flat on that end. That's all. Mop up that mess. Right, there we have it. Engine block back on the sump, which gives us a nice flat working surface to put the head gasket and the cylinder head on. That's in two layers. I've not seen one like that before. That appears to line up with all the holes. Yeah. Head gasket in two sections. I suppose it is two. I suppose it's not actually two head gaskets.
Yeah,
Surely
these are
not.
riveted, look.
Is it? Oh, okay, yeah. Just wondering about packing errors. But in fact, yeah, it is actually riveted there, in fact, in several places. Alright, So that sits on there quite nicely. So we now need to get the cylinder head over, and we'll need to take the cams off because you can't fit the head with the cams on. So the cam end is obviously at the front. Yes, it is the right way around already. And those dowels should engage. Can't feel it. Oh. Is it on? Yes, it seems fairly positive. Okay. So we'll run the head bolts in, and obviously you're going to have a Torx bit for that. No. We could run, I think, possibly the electric spanner. Oh,
That's not going to work, is it?
did I have to buy another one of those because that one's too fat? Which might be this.
Do we
Okay.
need to know the position of the cylinders?
No, because the cams aren't fitted at the minute, so all the valves are closed.
Yeah, but the pistons in
Well, yes, we do, but we can do that through spark plug holes.
Okay.
So the tightening sequence, 25 newton meters, then 45 newton meters, and then 105, but degrees, not newton meters. So that's what we're going to do now. 25 around the clock, as it were, using our 3/8 drive Torx.
Right,
So having checked with the film, we haven't done this one already, so 90 here.
that's 90 because it started a little bit off, so
Right.
let's go to that.
after a bit of a struggle, here is the Zetec put back together. Obviously we had to do all the torquing down of cylinder heads and camshafts and so on, but the most tricky part was getting the timing, valve timing correct. Now if you're doing this from scratch, if you were at the factory, these bolts here would be loose, and in fact the cam wheels would be free turning on the camshafts themselves. But I wanted to shortcut the process of doing the fine adjustment of getting exact positions by choosing a method that meant that it was only possible to be a whole tooth out. And in fact, you can see these two white marks which I put on here some time ago, which are intended to show, when lined up, that indeed the cams are back in position where they were. And that method, which I now realise was not quite reliable, further clarified with the use of a ruler. If you put it across the centres of the cam wheels, then the white marks, both of them, should line up. Now you see here that in fact they don't. Now why is that? So this was how it was done when I worked on this previously, so I've aimed to improve on that. But before I go any further with that part of the explanation, I will just also go into this. Now here we have the crank pulley, of course, and in similar way to a lot of modern engines, there's no timing marks on it because it's all done by the engine management system, isn't it? So the question is, how do you find top dead centre? And this is a method that I've used. I didn't invent it, I just found it somewhere on the internet. But this is how it works. So we've got number one piston out, and the length of this screwdriver is such that this mark that I've made on it lines up with the edge of the cylinder head, I guess, cylinder head casting, let's say, at that point. Now this point, as it is currently lined up, that actually is top dead centre. But the thing is, how do you find it? And this is the method. So the first thing to do is to turn the crank, and this is where an improvement I have discovered. So we're going to turn it back, but what we must do is also turn it forward so that all the tension in the belt is in the correct place. So we're now going forward, and you'll see that I've made another mark here. And in fact I've gone slightly past it, so let's do that again. So I'm going to line up with all the tension in the right place, this mark here and this mark here, which is slightly harder than perhaps you would imagine. Okay, so we've now got this mark here, which is lined up, as I've mentioned, with the mark on this screwdriver. So now, of course, if I turn the crank some more, the screwdriver will go up and then it will go down again. So that's what we're going to do now. And then we carry on turning in the correct direction. So we're going to go forward, the screwdriver goes up, and then back to the other timing mark, or the other mark that I've made, and it matches with the same spot on the screwdriver. Now that's crucial because it means that the mark represents each side of top dead centre. So having done that, it should be a simple matter simply to divide the distance between here and here by 2 and put in your top dead centre mark, which is actually how this mark here came about. So we created our own top dead centre position by measuring effectively the deflection of the screwdriver. In fact, what I'm going to do that again, actually, just for demo purposes. I've got another mark that I've eyed up on my screwdriver, and as you see, the mark is here. So we've got a new mark, and I'm going to turn the crank round until that mark. So we're going up, the screwdriver's coming up, and then it's coming down, and we're now back down to the same mark, slightly, little tiny bit more on the screwdriver over here. So if we want to find actual top dead centre, it's a relatively easy matter to measure the halfway point between those two marks, which fortunately is the same position as we already had it. So the mark on the label that I put on here on the timing belt cover is one mark, and the mark on the pulley, which is basically a sticker, is how it matches up. So there we go, top dead centre, and we've done that without use of a protractor or any fixed timing marks. Basically we've done it with a ruler, or in my case I actually done it by eye, and of course any errors that may exist are very, very small fractions, and if we're looking for a position on these cams and so on, that they can only be a whole tooth out. Even if it's very slightly wrong, they can only be a whole tooth out. They can't be part of a tooth out because the cam wheels have always been fixed. So that should be just right. And the other part, now this is where I come back to my previous comment where I said that the, actually I've just come very, no, that's right, it is right, where I said that my methodology has been, if you like, enhanced. We put a ruler across the centres of these pulleys, you'll see that the little white marks, which were done using the previous version of this method, don't actually line up either with, not either with each other, nor with the centres, which is ideally what they're supposed to line up with. So these marks are actually not quite in the right place. So I'm going to have to clean these off and replace them. The key thing on these Zetec engines is actually at the back of the cams, which I'm now going to swivel around and show you. Now, if you're doing this really properly, there's a special tool for this, but the key to it actually is these slots here in the back of the cams, which are the precise position, the exactly precise position. And if you were doing it having loosened the cam wheels, that's what you would use. So if you put a ruler, as I'm doing this by eye, I haven't got the special tool which fits in there, but I can see by eye that those two slots are in fact parallel with each other. They're horizontal to the nearest, goodness me, the nearest degree, certainly maybe fractions of a degree. So that means that these are definitely correct. It also means that the top dead centre is correct, albeit obviously we're going to take these stickers away. But it means also that my white marks previous methodology or version of this methodology were actually not in the correct place. And that means that last time I put this together, there is a chance that the thing was a tooth out, unfortunately. And I think the reason why that happened actually was to do with this business where you go off in one direction and then you go into the other direction. Of course, all the slack moves around because the engine never goes backwards, does it? Only ever goes forwards. So that, in fact, there was some error. And not only that, if you watch these two marks here, of course they're moving in opposite direction. they will line up somewhere. Look, they've just lined up there, I would say. They've lined up with each other, but they're actually out of line compared to the centres of the sprockets. Even though this is the they match with each other. So yeah, these marks were actually incorrect. Now I don't know that the position of the cams was a tooth out, but I do think it's possible. And anyway, it will certainly be correct now. I've undone my own work. Go back, and we're going to go forward to get the tension in the right place. Get TDC, which is there. We'll turn around, look at the back of the cams, and yes, those slots are horizontal and lined up with each other, enough to be certain within a tooth anyway. And there we have it. Believe you me, this took quite a while of fiddling around, because getting the tension in here was quite hard, and in fact getting the belt on without taking the cams off, or cam sprockets off, was actually quite hard to do. Getting the tensioning wheels with the belt in place was quite hard to do. So I think actually that's likely to be the very reason why Ford, when they made these engines, actually made these sprockets free running on the camshafts, so they could get the engine just in such position and then tighten the sprockets up, which I suppose, especially if you're in mass production, is actually probably easier than the way we did it. But anyway, being slightly lazy and lacking a protractor that we could easily put on this crank pulley, this looks like it's worked quite well, and hopefully will be improvement over how it was before. Now, having got my cam cover back on and scraped off the original white marks and I put in there, I'm going to put some new white marks for next time. Who knows if there will be a next time, but anyway, and this time I'm going to make sure that the centres are in line. In fact, that's extremely blurry. I'm just going to scratch off. Right, let's see if that looks right. Yeah, and hopefully those new white marks will show us the right way next time. Although, to be honest, taking the cam cover, this only really helps if you don't want to take the cam cover off. Taking the cam cover off isn't that hard. So anyway, there it is. New white marks, and hopefully you won't get that mistake again. And when we come to drive it, we'll see if it feels any faster, depending on whether the timing was wrong last time or not. And of course we don't really know, but there it is.